Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. This is the part 2 of the one we already did, the part 1. If you want to watch it, you can go and check the other video. So this is the part 2 we are going to start with.
Obviously, the prophet who you have the most controversy about always in history is Jesus alayhi salam, Isa alayhi salam. Why? Because Isa alayhi salam is the most highly politicized prophet in history, even though he was not himself necessarily political per se, but his image has been politicized throughout history. Actually, subhanAllah, even the earliest days of Christianity after the Apostle Paul, the image that Jesus assumed dependent on the culture that Paul was reaching. So Isa alayhi salam to the Persians looked like Mithras. He looked exactly like their Persian gods. To the Romans, he looked like their Roman gods. To the Egyptians, he looked like the Egyptian gods. To the Indians, some of the Hindus actually said that Isa alayhi salam was an incarnation of the Lord Vishnu. So they portrayed him as a carnation of the Lord Vishnu. So Isa alayhi salam, his image has been politicized for thousands of years. Obviously, the Atlantic slave trade, okay, using the image of a white god. I remember, subhanAllah, me personally, I remember, my dad teaches at Southern University, which is a historically black college, and I went to Xavier University for some time. And Xavier, I remember walking in Xavier University and seeing a picture of, because Xavier is a Catholic university, seeing a picture of Isa alayhi salam, for example, with dreadlocks and with dark skin. And I was like, this is interesting, but it's probably more historically accurate than the images that we're used to. But right away, I was throttled, and I was like, wait a minute, that's not Isa alayhi salam. But I'm like, well, what is Isa alayhi salam, right? What does Jesus, peace be upon him, look like? Interestingly enough, we find a disagreement amongst the Sahaba themselves. So we find a few ahadith. One of them is from Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And this is authentic hadith that the Prophet ﷺ says that while I was sleeping at the Kaaba, I saw a dark man. I saw a dark man who is the most handsome of dark men that you have ever seen. Meaning the most handsome man I've ever seen. Or the most handsome of dark men I've ever seen. So he's saying, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's praising the beauty of Isa alayhi salam. He said he had hair that was reaching to between his ears and his shoulders, like the most beautiful of hair that you've ever seen. So he praised the color of Isa alayhi salam, he praised his looks, he praised his hair, and then he said he combed his hair and water was dripping from his hair, and he was leaning on two men who were doing tawaf around the Kaaba. So I asked, I said, Man hadha, who is this? So they said, this is Al-Masih ibn Maryam. This is the Messiah, Jesus ibn Maryam, alayhi salam. So he said, then I saw a man with wiry hair and who was blind in his right eye, as if it was a floating grape. And I said, who is this? And they said, this is Al-Masih al-Dajjal. This is the Antichrist. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, though, he has a narration where the Prophet ﷺ says, I saw Musa, Isa, and Ibrahim alayhi salam. And Isa alayhi salam was of a red complexion, curly hair, and a broad chest. Musa alayhi salam was of a dark complexion, straight hair, and a tall stature, as if he was of the people of Azut. So that's also a hadith, right? Then you find Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. Ibn Mas'ud's narration says that the Prophet ﷺ spoke about the Al-Masih al-Dajjal in front of the people, and he said, Allah is not one-eyed, while Ad-Dajjal is blind in the right eye. Why? Because Ad-Dajjal will claim to be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he said, Allah is not one-eyed. Ad-Dajjal is blind in the right eye, and he said his eye looks like a rotten grape. Then he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, while I was sleeping near the Kaaba last night, I saw in my dream, فَإِذَا رَجُلٌ آدَمُ كَأَحْسَنِ مَا يُرَى مِنْ Adam. The same thing that he said in the narration of Ibn Umar, that I saw a man of dark skin who was the most beautiful of all of those with dark skin that I'd ever seen, and with the most beautiful of hair of all of those that I'd ever seen. And he basically, it perfectly coincides with the narration of Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Then he continues to describe Ad-Dajjal as well. So what do we do here? Because we have a narration of Ibn Mas'ud and Ibn Umar that are authentic, where the Prophet ﷺ is describing Isa alayhi salam as having dark skin, and then you have a narration of Ibn Abbas where the Prophet ﷺ is describing Isa alayhi salam with red skin, which is, actually white skin. Okay, Ahmar would refer to very white skin. There's another narration from Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, also in al-Bukhari, where he says, لا والله ما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لعيسى أحمر. He said, I swear by Allah that the Prophet ﷺ did not say that Isa alayhi salam had red skin. So Umar radiallahu anhu is attaching an oath to it. He said, ولكن قال بينما أنا نائم أطوف بالكعبة فإذا رجل آدم, and so on and so forth. He said, while I was sleeping, there was a man that approached and he had dark skin and so on and so forth. Now, the point of this is, number one, we should not dispute like the Christians do about the color of Isa alayhi salam, because it doesn't matter. That's number one. It did not matter. You have conflicting narrations. The stronger of them, obviously, that Isa alayhi salam had dark skin, which would be more historically accurate, but it doesn't matter. That's the point here. It was a non-factor, and it's part of the wisdom of not portraying the prophets of Allah. Okay? So, you have historical evidence. Ibn al-Manzur, he says that Hajar, Musa, Isa.
Yeah, there are some things that I didn't mention about Jesus, Isa alayhi salam. If you look at Christianity, for example, I can remember that there was a story, a nun, a woman in Italy, that was going to church in the morning, early in the morning. When she came out, she saw black man. She did, she do like, auzubillah, like, yeah, she ran, go back. She says it's a bad day, it's a bad day. So, you see, these type of things, all these type of things, and black people in Africa, they are following a religion that are one of the most racist religion. And if you talk to them, they will not agree, or they say, no, it's not like that. There was a time also in Ghana, they say, if you are going to church in the morning and you meet a white man, then you have to go back because you see God. So, oh man, black people are problem. We have problem.
That they have seen God.
Yeah. But Jesus, the Christians consider Jesus to be God, and he's what? Blonde eye, blue eye, blonde hair. And Jesus doesn't even look like that at all in reality, because Jesus is from Middle East. And this is the image of white people. They try to make themselves better, and they brought that religion to Africa, and Africans took it and think that Jesus is God. So if white man is God and you see him, you are going to church and you see him, of course you see God. You have to go back home. You don't need to go there. Yeah. So, and that is the type of education that I'm talking about for Africa. Jesus doesn't look even close to white. You see? But this is the image we get. And African leaders...
I don't know where they get that idea from, like Jesus was white, because I saw some, I don't know, I'm going to say documentary from Russia president. This president...
This latest, normally...
And he shows something...
Normally, the picture of the Jesus...
Like Jesus was black.
Yeah, that picture, it came from the son of a king. I think, I'm not really sure, I have to check it. The king, that time, Roman king, his son, they used the image to put as Jesus. And this image remain the face of Jesus. So that picture has a history. And I'll try to find it. I saw it before, but I forget. I'll try to find that story where that image came from. But Jesus doesn't even get closer to look like that. You see? So that's why these our brothers and sisters in Africa, they should educate themselves about, if somebody who is really looking for the truth, you have to make research.
Our problem is we don't want to read.
We don't read.
We don't read. And secondly, like, because we believe that we just growing out with this region, I don't need to read Quran again, or I don't need to learn anything about, So that's the problem. They are not reading, and they are not ready to even to read, to know the reality, what is inside the Quran. Some of them, they don't have any idea about what is written inside the Quran. They just believe what their pastors or what their parents tell them. That's the mentality that they are using. For my thinking, that's why I'm just think about the people in back at home. What do you think?
Yeah,
What's
but
the problem?
the problem is education. In Europe, let's say 100 years ago, if you come to Europe 100 years ago, you see almost all the women, they dress modest, they cover themselves like how Muslims are covering now.
Yeah.
But because of, why did Europeans throw the Bible away? Because if you come to Europe now, I can tell you, maybe if you are lucky, maybe 10% still believe. The rest, 90% don't believe anymore. Or maybe they believe but not in Christianity. They are just confused, thinking I think there is God, but I don't think, not Christianity, because they don't believe. Why? Because when the education came, they get better education, then they start reading the Bible. They read the Bible and realize that no, this cannot be from God. And that is the reason why even if those who come from Africa, if they ask you, you are Christian, you say, yeah, I'm Christian, then they are laughing. They think you are crazy. You see, so because of it, they want to throw away God. They just think God is a human creation. Human being create God just to to be using it for worshiping or for some reason. But they don't believe some don't believe God exists because of the corruption of the Bible. They just think if God exists, he cannot produce this type of book. This book, even a normal human being can produce better book than this. Yeah, so that's why. And if you look, Christianity destroy almost all the immorality. If you see the pornography, all these bad things, 90% are Christians. 90%. Look at how their women dressing. They walk almost naked.
But man, that's what you people want.
No. We are forced to look at it.
You are forced. Who is forcing you people?
Yeah, because in any place, if you turn your face like this, they are there. You turn you cannot escape it unless you just go to Saudi. That's why you can escape it. You see, but this type of, normally in the Bible also, they tell them to protect, to cover up.
Yeah.
Look at Mary. If they say they believe in God and Jesus is God, and why don't you imitate the mother of God?
Yeah.
But they don't do that. They say Jesus died for their sins, so it's not necessary to put any hard work. to get heaven. Jesus died for their sins, so everything they do, Jesus will forgive them as long as they believe in Him. You see, and that is the problem. So Christianity destroy European religion, or destroy the belief of in God. How can you believe three God at the same time? One is one.
Father, Son, and
Yeah,
and spirit, eh?
yeah, and in the Bible, you can beat your slave. If you have a slave and the slave did do something, you can beat that slave as long as the slave didn't die at the spot,
What?
and survive for 1 day or 2 days before he died, then you don't have any problem. But if you beat him and he die at once, that's where you have problem.
Hey, hey.
Why you said? Yeah, it's in the Bible. Yeah, you can beat your slave as long as he survive for 1 or 2 days, then it's okay.
Hey.
But if you die at once, then they will judge you.
And Adam alayhi salam, because Adam means dark, actually in the Arabic language. That's how the Arabs used to describe someone with dark skin. So Adam alayhi salam. And then you have the theological perspective, and as Ibn Manzur says, that the Sahaba did not care to ask much about this. And this is very significant because if you look at the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, they used to ask him about everything. But this was not a concern that they had. They would not ask the Prophet ﷺ, what color was Ibrahim? What color was this prophet? What color was he? Because it simply did not matter to them. So we should not portray them, and it should not become an issue to where it becomes politicized. Some of the other prophets that are mentioned in the Quran, or figures, you have Dhul Qarnayn, Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, and Ibn Abbas, they both say that he was a black king. Now obviously Dhul Qarnayn is a controversial historical figure in and of itself, because is he Alexander, is he Cyrus, Allahu alam. Again, it doesn't matter. The point being though, at this point now, because we know that there are prophets that Allah mentioned and there are prophets that Allah did not mention. The Prophet ﷺ says that there were 124,000 prophets. So, authentic hadith in Muslim Imam Ahmad, 124,000 prophets. Amongst them, 315 were messengers. Now, 124,000 prophets. So you can imagine how many of them were of different languages, how many of them were of different races, what they must have looked like, where they were sent to. That would mean that there were African prophets, there were Indian prophets, there were Chinese prophets, there were prophets that were sent probably to the Americas way before, right? With the ancient settlers of this land, there were prophets that were sent there. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. We don't punish a people until we send them a messenger. A messenger from amongst themselves. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن رَسُولٍ إِلَّا بِلِسَانِ قَوْمٍ. We have never sent a prophet except that he speaks the language of his people. And as the scholars say, the language of his people did not mean just that he spoke the language. As you all know, there are people that speak English, but they still don't speak your language. Right? We were talking about this earlier. As Sarah Palin would say, they don't speak American. All right? So there are people that don't speak your language, but they still speak your language, right? It's a different accent, or, they don't relate to you. The slang is different, so they might speak your language, but it's not really your language. So what did the ulama say that Allah means when he says, إِلَّا بِلِسَانِ قَوْمِ? That means a person who walked with them, spoke with them, a person that was just like them, a person that they could relate to, right? The whole point of, مَا لِهَذَا الرَّسُولِ يَمْشِي فِي يَأْكُلُ الطَّعَامَ وَيَمْشِي فِي الْأَسْوَاقِ. What is it with this prophet that walks in the marketplace, uses the restrooms, eats, and so on and so forth? Allah wants to send you prophets that you can relate to. So when Allah would send prophets in the past, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was sending them to people all over the world, Allah was sending prophets in every language and in every color. You can't say, well, Allah didn't mention African prophets and so on and so forth, so we can't assume that they were African prophets. We actually can very much so assume that they were African and Indian and so on and so forth.
You can see, that's why I was just saying, he says something like Zulkarnain, that's like Osiris or Alexandra, and he was also a black king. So, look, black people were the rulers of this world. Beginning, there was no any other color. And most of the high profile leaders from before, they were all blacks. But now, it look like we are the last on the bottom. What happened? Because we didn't give our children the education of themselves. We ran to the white collar to, always for help. For every situation, it looked like we become beggars. You see? And this is the reason why
It's affecting.
it affects us. It's not normal. We need to rise up. We need to learn our own history. We need to educate our children who we are and the history of, let's say, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years ago. All these type of things, the children have to know the truth so that all this bullshit will stop. You see, if the white people are teaching, or the Arab, they are teaching their children, oh, this happened and this. For me, I feel like why did prophets like come to a group of people? They will say there was 25,000 prophets God sent, but they only show only 5 or how many? 25.
25. Yeah.
Prophet. But the rest of the thousands, because every group before, Allah sent prophet to them to let them know the truth and follow the right path. You see? So why didn't we teach our children about ourselves? And we let somebody else bring his own story to confuse our children and to confuse us, because we have to teach our children the history. Look at African leaders. Look at African education. They don't know anything. If you come out here in the West, that's where you will start to understand the world better. But why can't we teach our children in Africa to understand the world? They know nothing. Somebody will finish university. Even you, the one who you just travel, you never even educate, but the education that you get from the traveling is better than the one who finished university in Africa.
We are sorry, but that is the reality.
It's not normal. It's not normal. So, brothers and sisters, it's a lesson to us to let our children know that all these prophets, many of them were blacks.
Yeah.
And the major ones especially, they were blacks. I don't even know any prophet that somebody would tell me was a white man. Even our own Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he himself said he comes from the lineage of black woman. So if he himself tell us he comes from the lineage of a black woman, means all the prophets, they are like a family. So they come after each other. So it means they were a lot of the major one, they were all blacks people.
Yeah.
So this is a lesson for today. Inshallah, maybe next weekend or the next time we're going to sit again, we will talk more about another story that is very important. So thank you all.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Thanks for watching, and subscribe to the channel.
Yeah.
And like our video, share it to people.
Yeah.
This is the 2025 beginning.
O mankind, listen well. I may not be with you much longer. The weak among you, feed them on what you eat, dress them as you are dressed. You will meet your God, and he will call you to account for your actions. Let those who are present warn those who are absent. You are all descended from Adam, and the best among you is he who most regards God. Think deeply about what I say. Let all your feuds be abolished. You must know that every Muslim is the brother of every other Muslim, and all Muslims are brothers one of another. Between Muslims there are no races and no tribes. Nor must you take anything from your brother except what is given freely. Do not oppress, and do not be oppressed. O my people, I am but a man. It may be that the angel of death will visit me soon, and death will overtake me. But I have left you a book, revealed by God, the Quran, which is light and guidance.